All right, guys, happy Tuesday. We are now at that critical phase of every election where they start rolling out the Hitler rhetoric. When there's nothing left in the arsenal, you start hearing people make the Hitler comparisons. And I'm about to show you guys, in case you have not seen it, the most extraordinary segment plausibly ever produced in the history of MSNBC News. It is that extraordinary. And it's, of course, coverage of Trump's rally at Madison Square Garden. Plus, you may have heard that Tony Burke, Australian minister, made good on his promise and banned me from Australia. Well, we're going to talk about that today, and I'm going to give you some more deets. But first, I'd like to briefly discuss Kamala's mother a little bit more and the Indian caste system. So welcome back to Candace. I see someone right now in the comments saying, Candace, I'm reading chaos. I'm so happy to see so many of you guys now diving into the MK Ultra program. I am just over the moon about the fact that so many of you enjoyed the conversation that I had with Yoichi Clark. I wish we could have had him in person, but he is on an assignment down in New Mexico and barely had any service. So I just felt that it was important enough for us to just get him in any regard to speak about what he knew about Kamala's family and about what she was involved in San Francisco. And it's scary. Yes, we were talking about not just the MK Ultra program, but also open borders, what it is that they've been trying to accomplish, the cartels. And strangely, as many of you guys noted in the comments, it's almost the only thing that makes sense. What he was telling us is the only thing that really makes sense, because we just keep seeing Kamala weaving in and out of so many personalities. Like, she really does have a Taylor Swift blank space baby, right? Like, she can just insert any personality that she wants to. And by the way, there's no better example of that than yet another accent. I genuinely don't believe people when they message me. I'm just like, I feel like I'm being trolled. I think all of my friends are liars when they text me and they say Kamala wrote out another accent, because I just don't think it's possible. We only have a few days until the election. And yet she did. And this time she became a black preacher. Down in, I don't know, let's just say Louisiana. Let's say she became a preacher from Louisiana, Texas. I don't know, but just take a listen to the latest Kamala personality.
Weeping may endure for a night, but joy cometh in the morning. The path may seem hard, the work may seem heavy, but joy cometh in the morning, and church morning is on its way.
I don't even I'm tired, guys. I am tired. But as joy cometh in the morning, I suppose, I don't see how this is legal. I just have to go to prison for like 30 days or something. I feel if you guys elect me dictator of the United States, I promise you, absolutely promise you, that sort of a thing, 30 days in prison, no questions asked. She just can't keep doing this. And I keep saying that she just can't keep doing this, but apparently she can't keep doing this because she does just keep doing it. It's just remarkable. It's just no shame. It's like she just seen a movie and she's joy cometh in the morning. Joy cometh in the morning. What is happening? And you guys, as we have determined on the show very much, and I'm so proud, I just want to say to the black men out in America, ooh, every award to you guys, hats off this year, because as she got caught on the hot mic, she just can't get black men to vote for her, as she was telling Gretchen Whitmer, who is a monster, by the way, herself, but we'll get into that another day. I'm going to be doing everybody's genealogy. This is my new thing. I am 23andMe. But we know that Kamala Harris is just not black. She's not black, and I don't care how you want to slice it and which way you want to break it down. There is no African in this woman's blood. We cannot find a single shred of it in a person in her lineage, and we're back in the 1700s. Like, we're still pulling together documents, putting together stories. We have tons of questions that we're trying to fill. Now, if you're thinking, but Candace, she very clearly has color. Well, yeah, we feel certain that that color can be traced to her Indian roots. So throughout this entire process, obviously, I have been very focused on Donald Harris's side of the family, because that has been the shadiest side of the family. And because I had people that were in that family who were not shady messaging me and saying, hey, she's lying about this, she's lying about that. This doesn't make sense. I've never heard of this. You know, Donald was very involved in Marxist groups. He was very underground. He had tons of money. His dad had money, and yet she's pitching herself as this middle-class person. But throughout this entire process, so many of you guys emailed me about her mother's side, and I kept being like, next week, we're going to get to it. And I truly just couldn't, like, it's like I didn't have enough time to allocate to both sides of the family. But I did want to briefly touch upon this because I think it's really important. The people that were saying to me, especially people that are Indian, saying that, Candace, you need to speak about the Indian caste system, because apparently, and I really am just learning this, but Shamala Gopal's family, that's Kamala's mother, sits at the very top of it. So today we're going to give you just a brief historical understanding in case you're not entirely brushed up on the social hierarchy in India, because many people would, why would you be brushed up on that? Maybe you vaguely recall it from some social studies class, but I'm going to just give you the definition as it's provided, just on a basic internet definition of what the caste system is. It says, it's quote, India's caste system is a social hierarchy that has been in place for at least 3,000 years. It categorizes people into social groups based on ritual purity and is passed down through families. The caste system affects a person's social life, including their profession and who they can marry within society, okay? So what you need to know is that the caste system is made up of essentially 4 main categories. The highest ranking are the Brahmins. Historically, those were the priests and the teachers. And then it's followed by the Kshatriyas, which are the warriors and the ruler class. And then the Vaisyas, which are the traders and the merchants. And lastly, the lowest ranking of the caste system would be if you came from the Sudra, and that would make you a laborer. So Kamala's family are of the Brahmin caste at the very top. And many of you pointed to the fact that Harmeet Dillon, who has been a patriotic lawyer, a warrior for America, really, recently sat down with Tucker Carlson and discussed this heritage. And obviously Harmeet Dillon would know this, given her background, discussed this with Tucker Carlson. Take a listen.
How did she pronounce her first name? And I ask because she's on video pronouncing it Kamala and Kamala, 2 different ways.
So I remember her putting the emphasis on the second syllable. So it was like Kamala.
Kamala.
Kamala was how she pronounced it.
Not Kamala.
Not Kamala. Kamala is actually how Indians pronounce it. The name derives from the word for lotus in Sanskrit, which is Komal. So
really?
Yeah. And so, you know, that is how you're supposed to pronounce it.
Is it a conventional name?
It's a conventional name, absolutely. And it's a Brahmin. She's from a Brahmin family. Her mother is Brahmin, and so, you know, high caste
Brahmin.
background.
I thought she was oppressed.
Well, she's a shapeshifter, like I said. So although, you know, I saw an explanation in one of these liberal publications trying to explain how throughout most of her career, she's passed as African-American and not mixed race because, of course, not until Tiger Woods became prominent did people parse out their differences in their racial background. So, you know, it was suggested that she had to pick one or the other early in her career, and she largely identified as African-American. And so she really focused on the African-American community in San Francisco. She identified as African-American. Did she live in a
black neighborhood? Did she live in Hunters Point?
She did not live in Hunters Point.
Oh, she
yeah,
didn't.
no, she lived in a nice condo in the South of Market in the ballpark area.
Right,
yeah, absolutely.
But she was, quote, focused on the African-American.
She was focused on the African-American community.
And she was. I don't know why Tucker's laughing. She was. She began locking up tons of black men, and which obviously we have been told now multiple times from Judge Joe Brown. We learned this from Yoichi Clark, the journalist, that she did have a particular focus on locking up black men for lowly drug crimes so that she could protect the people that were at the top of the cartel. Allegedly, that's what we were told again from a journalist, and I'm going to take his word on it. But it's fascinating to hear that, and I think Harmeet really nails it when she describes Kamala as a shapeshifter. And what exactly does it mean to say that you have a focus on the African-American community? Like that suddenly transforms you into an African-American. And we have shown you in the past that she quite literally said she was an African-American. That is just a lie. It's an objective lie. And shame on all the people who don't have the courage to call her out on that, who purport themselves or present themselves rather as leaders, right? They're the people that do the most to be gatekeepers and say, well, this person's not black enough. Candace isn't black enough because she's supporting Trump or she's a Republican. And yet when they're sitting across from Kamala Harris, they don't have the courage to simply ask her about her race, why she describes herself, which relative of hers has any African in them. And she won't be able to answer the question because that person does not exist, okay? Now, something that I was not aware of was how seriously the caste system was taken. And I did remark that in the past, Indians were saying, Candace, you just can't marry outside of your caste system without reaping some severe consequences, social consequences, meaning that you would be disowned from your family. And my husband was telling me about that as well. He was telling me about someone that he was friends with who had a relative who quite literally got disowned because he was Indian and he married someone who was Irish, and it was outside of they were at the top of the caste system, and the entire family just disowned him. So what's really interesting to think about is the context of Kamala's life in that way, or rather her mother's life in that way. What's also interesting and something that we recognize is that the mainstream media has really gone above and beyond to essentially wipe history for Kamala, recent history for Kamala, to make her a more viable candidate. As just one example, they used to write extensively about the fact, really came within an inch of calling Kamala a hoe. Like if you go back and you read San Francisco articles when she was dating Willie Brown, they made it very clear that she slept her way to the top and they were not happy about it. Now they absolutely clutch their pearls and call it misogyny when people mention it. When people mention their reporting from the past, they're like, oh, how dare you? It's because she's a woman. You're a misogynist. But also we discovered that the San Francisco Weekly deleted a piece almost entirely. I mean, we had to, it wasn't even on the Wayback Machine. We had to go onto a different archive site to verify that this quotation was real. It was a piece that the San Francisco Weekly did from 2003, which was an interview with Kamala's mother, Shamla Goplin, in which Shamla confirms that this caste system is real and that her bloodline goes back thousands of years. And that was in a piece that was entitled, by the way, Kamala's Karma. The purpose of the piece was they were essentially saying that she was having issues with re-election because so many people were basically saying, why are you here? You slept your way to the top. So maybe this is her karma for, not making, I guess, a more legitimate entry into the political scene rather than sleeping with an older married man. So this is directly from the piece. I'm going to read it. It says, Shamla immigrated to America from her native India in the early 1960s. Shamla's father was a high-ranking Indian civil servant. Her mother was an upper-class feminist concerned that the women who did her laundry were the victims of domestic violence. And this is a direct quote from Shamla from this piece. It reads, quote, in Indian society, we go by birth. We are Brahmins. That is the top caste. Please do not confuse this with class, which is only about money. For Brahmins, the bloodline is the most important. My family name, Goplin, goes back more than 1,000 years, end quote. So you have a woman who said this in 2003, obviously sounds proud when she says this, like we go all the way back 1,000 years, the bloodline matters to us. And she chooses to marry Donald Harris. Why? And then after marrying Donald Harris, neither she nor her children were disowned by her parents of the Brahmin class who worked in the government. Why weren't they disowned? That's supposed to be par for the course. They should want nothing to do with you because you married outside of the Brahmin caste. So what does that signal? What does that signal to us that they were not disowned, that we have this book of pictures of Kamala traveling with her grandfather, and she's got multiple pictures of her mother's parents visiting her in San Francisco. Then there's also this piece, right? So Kamala's aunt was recently interviewed about this historic run, and she's speaking all about Kamala and how she makes all of these Indian meals and how her mother raised her, surrounded by the Indian culture. But then she gets rather, I would say, suspiciously mum when it comes to the topic of Kamala's blackness. Take a listen.
I'm surely you've seen her videos of making Indian cuisine and Indian food. So what do you think about that?
Good for her. I'm glad about it. But mostly, nowadays her cook is my younger sister from Canada. She goes to, every now and then Kamala and her husband call her, and she goes to visit them. She stays with them for 4 or 5 days and cooks good South Indian food for them for 4 or 5 days and comes back.
Ma'am, looking ahead, Kamala Harris has also said that I'm a black woman who's got into the vice president post, but I will not be the last. And many are also saying that she will be the future president in 2024. Your take on that, ma'am?
I don't know. I have no comment.
She's got no comment on that. She's got no comment on that because I think it probably makes her uncomfortable to speak about Kamala in the context of her historic blackness, just like it now makes Kamala herself uncomfortable to speak about her race in the context of her historic blackness, whatever that means. Ever since we've started doing the series, she no longer wants to speak about it. We've noticed that it's just something that she just wants to eliminate entirely, hoping that people will go through the polls before her deception is discovered, but it's already been discovered. So here's my suspicion. My suspicion is that the reason that her mother was not disowned for marrying Donald Harris is because what Judge Joe Brown told us that Donald Harris told him and his wife is the truth. That Donald Harris was part Hindu. And I believe he was not just part Hindu, I believe he was part of the highest caste Hindu. It makes perfect sense when the more that I'm speaking and learning, I feel like I'm becoming an expert on the history of Jamaica right now. But it is just a fact that you had an entire class of Indians move in, that they were involved with the slave trade, that they were also involved. They became the planters, they became the owners. And as this picture comes together for me, and I am seeing that Kamala seems to come from some old bloodlines herself. And we are talking about Syrian Jews, and we are talking about Indians, and we are talking about Brits, what would have been the British Empire, Irish. I'm starting to believe that this may have been the same families that were involved in the East India Company. That is the hypothesis that I am arriving at. And don't worry, because every day we're inching closer. And I just know that I almost feel like it's going to be this week where we are finally able to get a full picture of what exactly it is that Kamala is hiding. And just know that we should be very concerned, because to know the involvement that they had with the oil, that they had with the oil industry, that they had with the slave industry, and to know that she has tried to obscure all of this and make it so that people aren't even aware of her mother's involvement in the MK Ultra program, means that this woman, far from being elected, has always been selected from the very beginning of her life. And I really do believe that she herself was likely experimented on psychologically from her mother. Even in that interview, her aunt talks about how strict her mother was. And that's exactly what I heard from other people, that her mother was very hard on her. And I don't think that any of these things should be the resulting president, lead to the resulting president of the United States. I think people need to vote accordingly and realize that if that woman gets into power, we may be looking at America becoming a communist country, because I believe that those are their aims. All right, guys, before we get into this next topic, I want to remind you that this episode is being sponsored by Nimi Skincare. That's my favorite skincare brand you see me using on Instagram. They've come to be known as America's skincare company because they formulate and manufacture all of their products here in the USA, which is so unique. And they also support pro-American causes and organizations unabashedly. Nimi Skincare is the true American luxury skincare, but their prices are affordable since they deliver directly to your door and they cut out the big box retailer middleman. Nimi has everything that you need to build an awesome daily skincare regimen to cleanse, brighten, protect, and help fight the key signs of aging. Another reason that I love Nimi is that they are a Christian-led company that stands firm in their values of faith, family, and freedom. So sign up right now at NimiSkincare.com for a subscription to save 15% on your routine and save an additional 5% if you use code Candace at checkout. Plus, you'll receive a free gift on every third order. If you aren't sure where to start, just take their skincare quiz. You'll find the perfect routine for your skin type. That's Nimi, spelled Nimi, skincare.com, promo code Candace today. All right, we got to get to some really big news. I got to tell you, truly, I was at Dollywood. I took my kids to Dollywood, and I'm getting blown up everywhere. You're trending Australia. You're banned from Australia. Your visa's being banned. Do you want to comment? I mean, literally, it was unbelievable. And the easy answer was no. I was with my kids at Dollywood, man. I was with my toddlers, and nothing could have been more important. And but I'm going to comment on that today, because the headline, this is from news.com, Tony Burke blocks visa for far-right U.S. influencer Candace Owens. He is the immigration minister, by the way, over in Australia. And I also want to make it clear to you guys that I found out at the same time that the press found out. So his office chose to leak this. This is supposed to be a private application process. So unless I spoke about this, no one should have known about this. But they chose to leak this, which I think is absolutely stunning. But listen, like I've been kind of stunned throughout this entire process, obviously, because Tony Burke, before we had even applied for a visa, said that if she applies, we're going to reject it. And I just am very interested in the process, I guess, just what goes on in this country, which is supposed to be, supposed to be a free country, I assume. But I guess the immigration minister can unilaterally make these sorts of decisions. Listen, I want to be careful here because I actually don't want to stoop to his level. I want to kind of take the approach of speaking about what's actually going on here because it's quite serious. It is quite serious when you have a person who says that the reason that I am not allowed to travel to Australia, never been in trouble in my entire life. I have traveled to, I was literally in Tokyo 2 weeks ago. I've traveled all over the world. I literally just all over the world, from China to Tokyo to everywhere, Hungary to Croatia to Italy to France. I mean, you name it, down to South America. I've been there and I've just never been in trouble. And yet the reason that he gave to the public was because I had the capacity to incite discord in almost every direction. The quotation he gave back in November was, from downplaying the impact of the Holocaust with comments about Mengele through to claims that Muslims started slavery, Candace Owens has the capacity to incite discord in almost every direction. Okay. So, of course, that's just not true. And one of the things that's really remarkable is when you see people writing these articles about things that I allegedly said, they all keep saying the ADL says she said this. So they're talking about a Zionist organization that says that she said this. I guess none of them can fact check that themselves. They just want to give an excuse to the public that this was somehow done legitimately. And of course, there is not a single, they cannot produce a clip of me talking about Joseph Mengele because it doesn't exist. They literally cannot produce a clip of that. I have no idea how it is that you are alleging that I am like both anti-Muslim and anti-Semitic. Again, all of this is to just make a statement to try to present me as some very scary person akin to Adolf Hitler. And we've seen this before, okay? We've seen this before. I always talk about the Hitler hoax. When you get to the point where people start saying or trying to make you believe that there is someone out there that supports Adolf Hitler, like they got on a stage and they got up and they were like, Joseph Mengele is great and Hitler's great, you know that you are dealing with someone who is intentionally lying. And a perfect example of that was when I debated Rabbi Shmuley and he recycled the Hitler talking point, which the ADL has recycled for years, saying that I once got up on a stage and I supported Adolf Hitler. And Piers Morgan slapped it down in one of the most beautiful manners that I've ever seen live on TV. Take a listen. I want to jog your memory on that.
And when she said in 2018 that she has no issue with Hitler because if he was a nationalist, but then he wanted to go beyond her borders, even then we didn't call her an anti-Semite. That's an absurd thing to say, that you had no issue with Hitler. Hitler, even domestically by then, had enacted all the Nuremberg laws. There was already the November 9th, 1938 pogrom.
Hang on.
And she said,
just to clarify, let's take these one at a time. What do you believe she said about Adolf Hitler in the clip you're talking about?
She said that there was no issue with Hitler except for the fact that he went beyond his borders. If he was a nationalist, that would have been enough.
Let me play the clip.
His domestic. No, but my point is, no one called her. My point is,
in the interest of fairness, I'm going to play the clip so that viewers who've never heard it can hear what actually got said.
Yeah, I agree. I actually don't have any problems at all with the word nationalism. I think that it gets, the definition gets poisoned by elitists that actually want globalism. Globalism is what I don't want. So when you think about, whenever we say nationalism, the first thing people think about, at least in America, is Hitler. You know, he was a National Socialist, but if Hitler just wanted to make Germany great and have things run well, okay, fine. The problem is that he had dreams outside of Germany. He wanted to globalize. He wanted everybody to be German, everybody to be speaking German, everybody to look a different way. That's not, to me, that's not nationalism. In thinking about how it could go bad down the line, I don't really have an issue with nationalism. I really don't. I think that it's okay. It's important to retain your country's identity and to make sure that what's happening here, which I think is incredibly worrisome in terms of the decrease in the birth rate that we're seeing in the UK, is what you kind of want to avoid. So I don't have I have no problems with nationalism. It's globalism that I try to avoid.
So Candace, on that specific point, would you say that Rabbi Shmuley has categorized it correctly or not?
He's just openly lying, and that's why he didn't want you to play the clip. I was in the UK, by the way. I was at the Royal Mobile Club. There were Jewish journalists in the room, and nothing was written about it until months later when somebody was working on a hit piece about me. I was answering a question when they were saying, how can we just embrace the word nationalism when it sort of has this dirty feel? And I was just essentially saying that I actually don't have an issue with nationalism. I think it's totally fine to be a British nationalist, to be an American nationalist. And the problem is that it's wrongly attributed. That word, I think people instantly associate it with Adolf Hitler. And I would argue that he wasn't actually a nationalist because obviously he invaded Poland and he went beyond German borders. I didn't even mention Jewish people. I didn't mention the Holocaust. And suddenly you have people like Rabbi Shmuley who are pretending that I got up there and I defended Adolf Hitler. Memory on that clip is because it's really important to see how these lies are formed in the media. And I know and I trust my audience. They know better than to think that I would ever be on a platform like saying Joseph Mengele or Hitler was great. But I routinely see this as the strategy. And you have Rabbi Shmuley up there, who is a representative of, Zionist cause. The amount of times that he lies, and these lies are then backed by the ADL and other groups, and journalists will circulate these lies, which is essentially taking me out of context to make it seem as though I was like committing this great evil. And it just begs the question, if you are on the side of righteousness, if you truly are speaking about someone who is evil, why is a lie required? Why is it necessary for you to continually take people out of context? And if I truly did say that, then you would probably rest assured that if I showed up into Australia, people wouldn't be attending my shows. They wouldn't be attending my shows. People would actually be legitimately outraged because the majority of people, the overwhelming majority of people, would never go out and truly support someone who says, yes, Adolf Hitler was just an amazing person. And so when I'm reading through the reasons listed and nothing said is true, like he cannot produce the clip about Joseph Mengele, as I said, because it doesn't exist. He just says, ADL said she said it. Rabbi Shmuley says she said it. Therefore, she must have actually said this. What you are seeing really take shape is that people don't want me to get in front of an audience. The audience understands what the reason is. We all know what actually happened in Australia. What happened in Australia is really kind of has been in the story of this year, which is that I am not comfortable with the amount of death that is taking place in Palestine. And the Zionist media empire is very powerful all around the world. And they essentially say, if you do not kowtow or at least stay mum, so you either got to be out there and pretending that you don't see all of the Palestinian children that are being blown up and killed on your X feeds. You can choose silence or you can choose support. But you cannot just be reasonable and say, I'm not okay or comfortable with that amount of death. And that's where I'm at. I've made my bed. I've chosen to lie in it. Okay, Candace, you're going to lose your job. Okay, check. I accept that. I accept that because to me, I'm not going to remove my humanity for money. It doesn't work for me. It doesn't work for me as a Christian. And so the next consequence is we want to make her feel isolated. We want to make her feel that she is alone, that she's not allowed to go out. She's not allowed to travel now unless she supports or shuts up about what's happening to these innocent children in Gaza. That this is like the next step. Oh, we'll take away your YouTube channel. They did that. The Zionist group or whatever it was called on X said, let's lead the charge and mass report and get her demonetized on YouTube. I said, okay. I accept that because once again, I'm not a person who can be bought for money. I said what I said, and I said it 10 toes down. I am not comfortable with the amount of death that is in Gaza. That's it, okay? That is the reason that the Zionist Federation of Australia has come after me. That is the reason why they are putting together a list of things that I never said to try to convince the public that what is being done to me is righteous in some way. And so I just wanted to fully express to you, to every person that's listening, that I have not changed my opinion. There is no amount of money that you can take from me, no job that you can strip from me, no threats, no made-up quotes that you can say about me that is going to change my mind about the things that I am seeing. And I wish I could show you the things that I am seeing, but YouTube has all sorts of policies which essentially say that they would consider it too bloody or too gory, and I can't show you what's happening to these children. But I can show you some that don't have blood. So here is a clip of one child talking about how Her feet are bleeding from so much walking. Take a listen.
ايش يا عم ايش مالك؟ من ايش تبكي؟
عشان من أعرف من أنا دم وتنزل كل يوم من الدم.
وين رجلك؟ وين رجلك مليانة؟ فيها دم يعني أنت تعبانة من المشي؟
بعرفش وين احنا رايحين.
يلا ربنا المستعان إن شاء الله. ربنا المستعان.
I have seen children starving. I have seen children with their limbs missing. I have seen more children crying than I would ever care to see. Here's another child crying in fear as he carries his own baby brother while fleeing a bombardment. Take a listen. And here is an 11-year-old Palestinian girl crying, saying that she just wants her legs back after they have been blown up. Take a listen. So the determined punishment for me, for not turning a blind eye to this, for not being a coward and pretending that I just don't see it, the determined punishment has been harassment, has been I'm going to take away your money and I'm going to ruin your reputation. And I'm going to have journalists that are Zionists try to essentially assassinate your character online. I have accepted that because I think that is a way easier punishment to accept than what these children are accepting on a daily basis. You cannot tell me that what took place on October 7th makes the stuff that I have been watching for now over a year on my X feed okay. It doesn't make it okay. Okay, this is, to me, basic humanity. And like I said, I have made my bed. I have laid down in that bed, and I find it to be quite comfortable. I find it to be the correct thing for me to do, is to side with humanity, to hear those children screaming, and to accept my punishment that I may not make it to the Sydney Zoo. So, Candace, you may not be able to hold a koala at the Sydney Zoo. That's my punishment. If that's what Tony Burke feels that he wants to dole out onto me, I fully accept it. But I will never be a person that will kowtow to money. I know that I can't worship both. I am not a castrated Christian. I am just a Christian. And I know that any person, country, group, or lobby that can do this stuff in broad daylight and have the entire media back them up and harass the people who have a humane response to that, I know that that's a great risk to my children's future. Because what if that group decides that America is the enemy? What if it's my children that are losing their legs and crying? What if it's my children that are holding one another after their parents have been killed? I choose to speak up on it. So I just wanted to make sure that every person knows that despite me being fired, demonetized, spoken ill about, I haven't changed my position. And not only that, but the bigger deal, and this is why they do these sort of petty acts of vandalism. That's what this really is, a petty act of vandalism. No one's worried about me coming to Australia, is because they're angry that they've put this narrative out about me and my listeners haven't accepted it. They're angry that despite everything they have done to destroy my character and to beat down my will, that I'm still happy, that I'm still smiling, and that I'm still at the top of the Spotify charts. So you may be rejecting me for siding with humanity, but my listeners reject you. They reject your narrative. They know that you're lying about me. And I'm proud of them, and I'm proud of me. And that's all I'm going to say about that. Does anyone else remember Event 201? Just before an election, Bill Gates, the World Economic Forum, and Johns Hopkins ran a pandemic simulation in October of 2019. Months later, COVID hit, and here we go again because it's October, and we're on the verge of a historic election. And after the recent bird flu summit in D.C., they had a full-scale pandemic exercise in New York City. Their playbook is the same: create chaos, bring back lockdowns, and perform medical tyranny. Last time we were caught off guard, but now we have a proven solution to protect ourselves and our families. The wellness company created the medical emergency kit, and every home in America should have at least one of these. They're packed with life-saving meds like ivermectin, amoxicillin, and a Z-Pack. It's all backed by the wellness company's medical board. Picture this: no more frantic searches for a doctor, no more emergency waiting rooms, just a few clicks and the kit is delivered to your front door. Protect your family by preparing today. Get your kit by heading over to twc.health/Candace. You can use code Candace to save $30 on your kit. Take control and ensure you're protected against whatever comes next. Use code Candace at twc.health/Candace. Okay, in funnier news, honestly, actually, it's kind of related to the Hitler hoax. Again, if anybody ever is telling you that Hitler, and it's usually a hoax because it's just what they say when they have nothing left. And you just go, it's Hitler. They love Hitler. And MSNBC did this extraordinary thing. I wanted to show you the campaign, the Will Ferrell movie, The Campaign, because for those of you who have seen it, there's this scene and it's basically they're mocking politics, but now Will Ferrell mocking politics has become real life. And there's this scene when they're trying to figure out how to attack Cam Brady, or Cam Brady's trying to figure out how to attack the other guy. I don't remember who was attacking who. And they put together this news segment where they're like, Cam Brady has a beard. You know who else who has a beard? Al-Qaeda. People who are in Al-Qaeda have beards. Where was Cam Brady on 9/11? Like basically insinuating that because he has a beard, well, obviously he must have been in Al-Qaeda and executed 9/11. Like totally absurd and crazy. It's supposed to be funny. Well, this is now real life. I'm going to show you a clip from MSNBC. And I just don't know how this is not a Will Ferrell skit. Take a listen.
But that jamboree happening right now, you see it there on your screen, in that place is particularly chilling because in 1939, more than 20,000 supporters of a different fascist leader, Adolf Hitler, packed the garden for a so-called pro-America rally. A rally where speakers voiced anti-Semitic rhetoric from a stage draped with Nazi banners. When a Jewish protester rushed the stage, the Associated Press reported, quote, instantly, a dozen or more stormtroopers set upon him, knocking him down and beating him as he held his head in his arms. Most of his clothing was torn from his body. Later, he was booked for disorderly conduct. Now, against that backdrop of history, Donald Trump, the man who has threatened to use the military against opponents he calls enemies from within, who has threatened to use the troops to quell what he says are lawless cities, and to use those troops to carry out mass deportations of immigrants, is once again turning Madison Square Garden into a staging ground for extremism.
I mean, that is extraordinary. Give that guy every award. I'm just going back in history and you're like, you know who else was at Madison Square Garden? Hitler. Therefore, Trump is Hitler. It's just amazing. I just love these guys. You have to enjoy it. It's crazy to me that there are people that watch that and they're just like, oh gosh, brilliant journalism. I didn't know 85 years ago there was a pro-Nazi rally. Well, clearly that must be why Trump's here, and the Knicks, and like every artist who has sold out at Madison Square Garden. Have they ever done that? Have they ever done the old, you know who else sold out Madison Square Garden? Hitler supporters. It's amazing. I'm sorry, but it is absolutely amazing. It deserves our respect and our attention. So kudos to you, MSNBC, for really giving me such a chuckle. I mean, there's nowhere you would go, but you can sense their panic here that nothing's really working and Kamala is struggling right now. And so they gotta go all the way to the wall here and just throw out the Adolf Hitler line. So that's where we are at in this election. Not much long to go now. This is why they're saying that Kamala should go on Joe Rogan. Now, obviously, Trump went on Joe Rogan. It was huge. It's currently at 38 million views. I mean, insane. And he made the offer to both campaigns, so he wasn't trying to tip the scales in any way. And Kamala Harris, I think initially people had thought that she had passed on doing the podcast, but Joe Rogan actually clarified that she hadn't. He tweeted this. Also, for the record, the Harris campaign has not passed on doing the podcast. They offered a date for Tuesday, but I would have had to travel to her, and they only wanted to do an hour. I strongly feel the best way to do it is in the studio in Austin. My sincere wish is to just have a nice conversation and get to know her as a human being. I really hope we can make it happen. So you can see really is they're trying to say, like we said yes to this, but they want to do it under their own terms. And they know that she can't carry a long conversation. She's just not all there. This isn't. I'm starting to wonder whether or not Joe Biden was competent compared to Kamala Harris. That's where she's got me at right now. I hear her speak and do stuff, and I'm like, man, maybe we had it made with Joe Biden. Like, did we complain and now we're stuck with Kamala Harris? We got nothing going on upstairs but that blank slate. And so I think obviously they want to be able to manage the situation. They want to be able to essentially pull her out of it, and they think an hour tops. But Joe Rogan, when you go on it, I've been on it, it's like 3 hours, and she just can't do that. And they also don't want him to be in his environment. They're trying to move it into her environment, trying to make her more comfortable. And they'll probably have all the people in the room, like we heard Brett Baer say, where they were like, last question, and they can pull at any time. And it's not the way it's going to work if she does Joe Rogan. I think she's going to pass on it. I really do. We'll see. I hope she doesn't. I would love 3 hours of Kamala Harris content. I don't even know how many accents we possibly get. Could you imagine? We would at least get 6 accents. And I want that. I want that for us. I want that for her. So please, Kamala, if you're listening, I know your team is watching every episode because you're terrified. I'm getting close here. Please go on Joe Rogan and give it all to us. Every accent you got. All right, guys, before we get into your comments, I want to remind you about PureTalk, because these big wireless carriers want to limit you and your choices when it comes to a data plan, basically forcing you to buy a ridiculous amount and a ridiculous expensive unlimited plan. In today's economy, now is the perfect time to stop overpaying for data that you are never going to use. If you want to choose how much data you actually want, then you should make the switch to my cell phone provider, which is PureTalk. For just $25 a month, you'll get unlimited talk, text, and 5 gigs of data plus a mobile hotspot. So stop overpaying for wireless and get America's best 5G coverage with PureTalk. Switching is so easy. There's no contract, no activation fee. You can even keep your phone and your phone number. Right now, our viewers are going to save an additional 50% off your first month. Just go to puretalk.com/Owens. Again, that's puretalk.com/Owens. Okay, I'm not even going to switch to Rumble. I'm going to actually just start reading comments. We're only going to read Rumble comments because I think that's all we're really allowed to do, by the way, because I am still demonetized on YouTube, so you guys cannot write in comments here. All right, here is what we've got. Hey, it's Zach writes, when Kamala was talking about praying every day, sometimes twice a day, she literally doesn't understand Christianity. Meanwhile, the real Christians are praying without ceasing. That's another thing. What is she? Like, what actually is Kamala's faith? Has anybody asked her that basic question? They're just refusing to ask her anything about her personal life. And that's kind of a very important question. Like, is she purporting to be a Christian? What is she, Kamala? What are you actually? What is your faith? Do you and Doug share a faith? Are you Hindu? Has not been clear. Skitten Hund writes, hi, Candace, today is my birthday. I'm digging dirt in my greenhouse and being feral today. Thanks for keeping me company while I wrestle these rocks out of the dirt. P.S. It's pronounced Sheetin Hund. Okay, thank you so much. Sheetin Hund, happy birthday. And there's no better place to be than if you're barefoot and you're in your garden. I absolutely love that. It's so relaxing. You can't even explain it. Zach also writes, Candace, you have been a major inspiration for my dad and I to start our podcast and media company that we've always dreamed about. The way you fight for the truth against persecution is an example of Christ. I think I have it easy. I'm like, if this is my cross to bear, like what? I mean, I did want to hug a koala. I'm not going to lie. I did. I think koalas are really cute, and I've always wanted to hug one. But I'm like, all right. Like, I did also maybe kind of want to fight a kangaroo. I see a lot of these videos are like jacked and like punch people, and I was like, maybe that would be good content. But if I have to hang that up, I will hang that up. I Like Purple Things writes, found you when you started the Harris genealogy series. I'm addicted. I'm so depressed in the weekends without an episode. Also reading Chaos. Yes, I am so happy that more people are just being awakened to how evil our governments are all around the world. And when I say all around the world, I mean, like, even in Australia, I think a lot of people are like, oh, the Aussies. No, they're deeply upset by what's happening. They understand what they're going through right now. And when you start coming for speech, well, what happens thereafter is very scary historically, right? It means that they are trickling towards a communist nation. When you have people that say, I just elect myself a dictator of this, and it's against the will of the people, and it's against the will, it's not the will of the government. You're talking about one man who can make a decision like that. That's very, very scary. 123B writes, well done and double well done, Candace. God bless you and your family. I'm with you. Thank you so much. Midnita writes, hey, Candace, have you seen the Muslims in Michigan endorsing Trump? My producer's making a note here that Trump earned endorsements from highly respected Muslim leaders during a campaign rally in Michigan. I actually had not seen that. So that is very interesting turn of events. I mean, I did know that it was presenting a problem for her, that she really wouldn't say anything much, kind of danced around the question when she was asked about what she would do regarding the Israel-Palestine conflict, but I had heard rumbles that people were going, we're not going to vote for her. That's very interesting. Ivy writes, I'm from London, England. I watch you every day. You're a big part of my awakening. You're amazing and you're so pretty. Thank you, Ivy. That is very kind of you to say. And, I love London. It's like a second home to me. And we just spend tons of time there every year. Boom, Australia writes, a lot of Aussies support you, Candace. They might be able to stop you coming here, but they will not stop us from listening to you. Thank you, guys. I mean, so many of you guys were writing me yesterday, and I just so appreciated it. And we'll see what happens. It's not, just so you guys know, it's not over. You don't have to return your tickets just yet. Like I said, he leaked this to the press. Who knows who he was trying to please by doing that. It's a very strange thing for people to want to. I think it's quite frankly disrespectful to do something like that if you are elected as a leader. But I don't know Australian politics. I'm just now getting to know Australian politics. Either way, I think, like I said, that the cross that I have to bear is quite easy, and it's not going to be a situation in which I, turn the other way and start behaving according to the media rules. That's just not what I want to do. And I don't think that's what people want. I look at the charts and I see Tucker Carlson, Joe Rogan, Candace Owens, Theo Vaughn is also, I think, in the top 10. And it's very clear that people are starting to trust independent voices for at least having the courage to be honest with them about world events and not to toe these sort of corporate lines. So we'll see. Anyways, tomorrow we're going to got some fascinating stuff we have discovered about Christiana Brown. I was going to give it to you today, but I just wanted to flesh it out a little bit better. Didn't want to make any mistakes. So we'll have that for you guys tomorrow, and we will see you guys. Oh, by the way, remember, if you want to support me, go to locals.com and you can sign up to support us there. We're also on patreon.com as well. I know some people overseas say that they can't sign up on Locals, but locals.com if you want to support the show, or patreon.com if you want to support the show. We truly do rely on you guys because everywhere else we are just kind of getting banned. But that's all right. We'll see you guys tomorrow.